At my cousin's engagement, my parents and relatives laughed at me. They said my fiancé wasn't real, that I made him up to escape embarrassment. They called him fake, and the whole room joined in. But the laughter ended the moment he landed in his private jet, walked into that hall, and proudly called me his wife. Hey lovelies, welcome back to Tales by Laura. If you love jaw-dropping stories where humiliation flips into sweet revenge, you're in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss the next powerful story. Today's tale is one you won't forget. Because when they laughed at her fake fiancé, they had no idea he was about to walk in and silence the entire room. Let's begin. The hall smelled of roasted chicken, champagne, and fresh flowers, but to me, the scent was nothing more than a reminder of how out of place I felt. My cousin Celeste's engagement party was in full swing. Everyone wore bright smiles, glittering gowns, and sharp suits. I sat quietly at one of the side tables, keeping my head low, pretending to scroll on my phone so I wouldn't have to meet anyone's eyes. My parents, however, weren't pretending. They'd found their way to the center of attention, as always. With their glasses raised, the laughter cut through the room. You know our daughter, my mother said with a smirk that made my skin crawl. Still single at her age, yet she swears she has this mystery fiancé. A man so rich and powerful that apparently none of us are allowed to meet him. The crowd chuckled, and my father chimed in, shaking his head as if I were a 5-year-old who'd lied about eating cookies before dinner. Imaginary men don't buy rings. Imaginary men don't show up to family events. Our poor girl just can't accept reality. The humiliation stung. I wanted to disappear under the table, but I clenched my jaw instead. I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Celeste, glowing in her sequined gown, leaned over and whispered loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear, maybe her fiancé will fly in on a unicorn tonight. The laughter that followed hit me like a slap, and I felt the burn rising in my cheeks. They didn't know. They had no idea. Because while they mocked me, a private jet was already cutting through the clouds above, descending toward the city's small but exclusive airstrip. And on that jet was the man they claimed didn't exist, the man who would soon turn this entire evening upside down. I glanced at the time on my phone. My lips curled into a small smile. Just wait, I thought. Keep laughing. Your mockery is about to end. The music shifted to a slow jazz tune as the servers carried trays of champagne across the hall. I tried to stay composed, but my heart raced. The whispers around me grew louder, and I caught fragments of them, mockery wrapped in fake sympathy. Poor girl, still holding on to fantasies. She probably made him up to feel important. Imagine, at her cousin's engagement, still alone. I swallowed hard, gripping my clutch so tightly my knuckles ached. Then, it happened. The sound of phones buzzing and guests rushing to the windows near the entrance echoed through the hall. Heads turned. Someone gasped. A sleek black car, the kind that usually only appeared in music videos, pulled up outside. The chauffeur stepped out, his sharp uniform glinting under the lights, and opened the back door. Out stepped a man whose presence immediately shifted the energy in the room. Tall, broad-shouldered, with skin that glowed like polished mahogany under the lights, he adjusted his tailored suit and brushed his watch, a timepiece I knew cost more than most people's cars. His stride was calm, confident, but there was a weight to it, like every step declared he belonged anywhere he walked. The murmurs swelled. Who is that? Is he a celebrity? Did Celeste's fiancé invite him? But I knew. My pulse steadied, and for the first time that night, I lifted my chin. As he entered the hall, his eyes scanned the crowd with ease, ignoring the stays, the whispers, the open mouths. Then, those piercing eyes landed on me. The corner of his lips lifted, not just in recognition but in pride. He walked straight past Celeste, past my parents, past the circle of relatives who'd been laughing minutes ago. Amari, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the music. He reached me, bent slightly, and without hesitation pressed a kiss to my forehead. The gasps were almost comical. Forgive me for being late, my love, he said, his deep voice cutting through the silence. The jet was delayed leaving Houston. The word jet alone sent waves of shock across the room. I didn't need to look at my parents to know their smug grins had vanished. Amari reached into his inner pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, placing it in my hand like it was second nature. Then, with deliberate care, he laced his fingers through mine. "This is my wife," he announced, his voice firm, leaving no room for doubt. "And I came tonight to honor her family, even if they don't honor her." The room erupted, not with laughter this time, but with disbelief and envy. My parents froze, Celeste's eyes widened like she'd seen a ghost, and every mocking word they'd said just minutes before dissolved into stunned silence. I squeezed his hand, breathing in the sweetness of the moment. The tables had turned, and we were only just getting started. The hall, once filled with laughter, now pulsed with stunned silence. Glasses dangled midair, conversations died mid-sentence, and all eyes locked on me and Amari. My cousin Celeste's mouth hung open. The sparkle of her diamond ring suddenly seemed dull compared to the brilliance of the moment unfolding before her. She had always been the star, the one with the fancy job, the designer clothes, the enviable fiancé. But right now, none of that mattered. Wife. Celeste stammered, her voice cracking. "Did you just say wife?" Amari squeezed my hand gently before facing her. His smile was polite but firm, the kind of smile that could cut. "Yes. My wife. We married quietly last year. We don't parade our business for validation, unlike some." His words, though measured, carried a sting that Celeste couldn't mask. My mother's wine glass trembled in her hand. She forced out a laugh, high-pitched and brittle. "This is ridiculous. You expect us to believe, after all this time, that you married someone we've never met? Without telling us." This is another one of her stories. But Amari's gaze silenced her. He reached into his briefcase, pulled out an envelope, and placed it on the nearest table. Bank statements, deeds, flight itineraries, everything that proves not only who I am but who she is to me. The crowd gasped again, leaning closer, curiosity overtaking their skepticism. My father coughed, trying to reclaim control. "If this is true," he muttered, "why hide it from family?" This was my moment. For the first time in years, I didn't shrink under their judgment. I lifted my chin and let the words roll off my tongue. Because family hasn't treated me like family in a long time. Every dinner turned into a competition. Every achievement I had was mocked or dismissed. You didn't want to celebrate me. You wanted to see me small. So I chose to live my life away from your ridicule. And now, the man you laughed about, the imaginary fiancé, is standing right here. The silence was deafening. My father's lips pressed tight, my mother's eyes darted nervously, and Celeste's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Then Amari turned to me, slipping his hand into his jacket again. This time he pulled out a wrapped box, delicate and shimmering under the light. He handed it to me as if no one else existed in the room. "For you," he said softly, "because my wife deserves more than whispers and shame. She deserves to be seen." Tears welled in my eyes as I untied the ribbon. Inside was a necklace so breathtaking the room audibly gasped. A cascade of sapphires set in white gold caught the chandeliers and threw streaks of blue light across the hall. And as I held it up, my parents, who had spent their entire lives belittling me, were the ones shrinking in their seats. This night was no longer Celeste's moment. It was mine. The necklace glittered in my hands, reflecting more than sapphires. It reflected power, truth, and vindication. For once, the spotlight was on me, and not because I was being mocked. Celeste's fiancé, Malcolm, shifted uncomfortably by her side. He cleared his throat, trying to lighten the mood. "Well, congratulations, I guess. That's unexpected." But his eyes betrayed him. They kept flickering to the necklace, the watch on Amari's wrist, the authority in his posture. Celeste, desperate to claw back attention, slipped her arm tighter around Malcolm's. "At least my engagement is public, celebrated, and not some hidden arrangement." Her laugh was sharp, like glass cracking. Amari's reply was calm, but it cut her deeper than a scream ever could. "What you call hidden, we call protected. Not every blessing needs to be paraded for applause. True love doesn't need an audience to survive." The crowd murmured in agreement. Heads nodded. For the first time, Celeste's charm failed her. Then my father stood, his pride crumbling under the weight of truth. If this is real, he said, his voice low, then why weren't we, the parents, respected enough to be told? My chest tightened, but I spoke clearly, letting every word pierce the silence. Because you never respected me. Every dream I shed was mocked. Every hope I carried was trampled. You laughed at me for years, so I stopped giving you the privilege of my truth. Gasps echoed. Some relatives covered their mouths. Others whispered in awe. My mother shook her head, forcing out a shaky smile. We only wanted the best for you. No, I cut in, my voice firm. You wanted control. You wanted me to follow the script you wrote for Celeste. But I chose my own path. And that path led me to a man who loves me for who I am, not who you think I should be. As if on cue, Omari reached into his pocket again and pulled out keys, sleek, metallic, unmistakable. He placed them gently in my hand. This, he said, addressing the room, is for her. Not because she needs it to prove her worth, but because I want the world to know she's cherished. The car's waiting outside. The collective gasp was deafening. Phones whipped out, some recording, others snapping pictures. My mother's hand flew to her chest. My father stumbled back into his chair, and Celeste's face burned crimson as her own engagement gifts looked like party favors compared to mine. I rose to my feet, clutching the keys in one hand and the necklace in the other. My voice was steady, almost serene. 4 years, you called me invisible. Tonight, you'll never forget my name. And the hall erupted, not with laughter, not with mockery, but with applause. Genuine, thunderous applause. The applause swelled like a storm, shaking the chandeliers overhead. For once, the cheers weren't for Celeste, or for my parents' carefully crafted image of success. They were for me. Celeste's smile cracked, her confidence slipping away. She clung to Malcolm's arm as if he could shield her from the humiliation. But he wasn't looking at her anymore. His eyes stayed locked on Omari, measuring, comparing, realizing he would never measure up. My mother, desperate, tried to salvage her pride. Well, she said, forcing her voice into a brittle laugh, I suppose appearances don't matter. Marriage is about more than money and gifts. But Omari didn't flinch. His deep voice filled the hall with calm authority. You're right. It's not about money. It's about love, respect, and protection. 3 things your daughter deserved from you long before I came into her life. You failed her. I won't. The room fell silent. Every word cut through the air like lightning. My father sank back into his chair, eyes dark with defeat. My mother's gaze darted away, unable to meet mine. Celeste shifted uncomfortably, her cheeks streaked with humiliation. I stood tall, my hands still entwined with Omari's. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the overlooked one, the joke, the outsider at family gatherings. I felt seen. I felt whole. I turned to the crowd, my voice steady. Family isn't just about blood. It's about who stands by you, who lifts you up instead of tearing you down. Tonight proved that. I glanced at my parents, then at Celeste. And from this night on, I'll never let anyone laugh at me again. Omari kissed my hand gently, then whispered in my ear, it's time to go. As we walked toward the exit, the crowd parted for us like the sea itself, whispers following in our wake. Some eyes shone with admiration, others with envy, but all of them knew one thing, I was no longer the woman they mocked. Outside, the sleek black car waited, its engine humming like a promise of freedom. The driver opened the door, and I slid inside, Omari right behind me. Through the tinted window, I caught one last glimpse of my parents and Celeste standing frozen in the doorway, their faces pale, their laughter gone. The tables had turned. The night that was supposed to crown Celeste had exposed her envy, silenced my parents, and revealed me for who I truly was. Not invisible, not a joke, but a wife, a partner, and a woman worth respecting. As the car pulled away, Omari squeezed my hand. They'll never doubt you again, he said softly. And for the first time in years, I smiled without fear, without shame, knowing that everything had finally changed. If you enjoyed watching how her so-called fake fiancé proved everyone wrong, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way, you'll never miss another unforgettable story where truth wins and pride gets humbled. They laughed. They mocked. They swore her fiancé didn't exist. But when he stepped out of his jet and called her his wife, the whole room was silenced. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't loud, it's simply living in a truth others can't deny. Thanks for watching, and until next time, remember, never let anyone write your story for you.